Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the very last AM actual news of the year 2024. No, I'm not going to present any lists to you. I'm not sure about you, but I'm sick of lists. I'm getting emails with the list of the best pictures and things that I need to remember. I don't want to have any lists. So today, per usual, we have the actual news, the latest news from the US and, of course, around the world. We have a bunch of interesting stories, some leaks, some announcements, some things to look forward to, some interesting tweets. So we're gonna go through all of that. And thank you so much for joining me. Whether you're off today or you're working and then celebrating New Year's Eve, I hope you're having a peaceful morning. Let's check some comments. Good morning, Brandon. Way, Brandon is here. Good morning. Good morning, Kelly. Good morning, all. So happy to see you guys. Thank you so much for joining again. Please add your voice to the conversation. I'm very happy to read your comments and questions. Also, yesterday I posted that if you have any questions about the funeral services for President Carter, or now late President Carter, please ask your questions. So I'm going to have a readout on the process. It's a 6-day funeral service. And so I'm going to guide you where this will be. And if you are in Georgia or Washington, D.C. or would like to travel, then ask questions where you can, honor him or visit the procession. Good morning, Roberta. Good morning. Good morning. Olga and Honesters. I like it. Honesters. Good morning. Good morning. Bonnie, good morning. Kelly says, I'm not looking forward to the new year. In order to survive, we kind of need the new year, right? So that's the notion. We kind of want to wake up tomorrow and that will be new year, right? Okay. So also let me know how you want to celebrate. Are you celebrating? Are you going to bed? What's in your tradition, whether it's your country, state, city, your family. How do you usually celebrate? I grew up in Eastern Europe, so we have Santa is coming at midnight and getting presents. Obviously not to me at my age, but this is the tradition there. We do not exchange presents on Christmas, but rather on New Year's. So that was usually the tradition, and then it changes once you age, right? So as to the news, let's start with some quick news first, some quick readouts. Today, President Biden has departed at this point St. Croix in U.S. Virgin Islands for Wilmington, Delaware. He's going to celebrate New Year's Eve in Wilmington. Then tomorrow he's going to Cape David, then spends a day there and then returns to the White House. And then through the end of this week, every day he's going to have ceremonies and awarding medals to military members and others as well. So this will be, of course, broadcast, and I'll guide you through it. But this is the plan for the end of the week. As to the plans for Italy, right? Because the Carter services will begin on January 6th and will end on January 9th with the the big funeral service in Washington, D.C., but his final resting place will be in Plains, Georgia. So President Biden will be delivering eulogy in Washington, D.C., but also traveling. So, of course, this delays his plans to leave for Italy. He was previously scheduled to leave, I think, on the 9th. So we'll see how this trip will be adjusted. But certainly, I don't see any notifications that the plans are canceled in terms of Italy. And I know some of you have asked that on the socials. Granted, we just did barely survive the first Trump term. Interesting to see if we do the second. Let's keep our heads on a travel, as Olga says, on a swivel, right? Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, buckle in. It will be a bumpy ride. Exactly, right? So I hate flying and I hate bumpy rides, but if you want to get somewhere, you have to, right? You have to travel, or you sit down. Okay. So, to actual quick news. Russia and Ukraine have exchanged yesterday 300 prisoners of war in a deal brokered by United Arab Emirates. And this was really a sight to see. They have departed Russia. They arrived in Ukraine. They kissed the ground, literally, very happy to be home. Aside from military members, there were some civilians also who were held hostage in Russia and so who were released, which is the best news for these families, of course, by the end of the year. Now, Donald Trump yesterday failed in an appeal to overturn the $5 million judgment for sexually abusing writer E. Jean Carroll and later defaming her. This was a loss for him yesterday, and he's owing her $5 million. Trump yesterday also endorsed Mike Johnson to continue as House Speaker. Their vote will be on Friday, and he's trying to keep him in place. Musk is now apparently also in favor of Johnson. He was against him before, so we'll see what this Santa Barbara production will result in by the end of this week. A Chinese spy agency hacked the Treasury Department, gaining access to employee workstations and unclassified documents. The Biden administration has announced and confirmed this morning. They have not released much detail about that, but once I have that, I will put it in your newsletter. By the way, as to newsletter, yesterday you received an email. Please, if you have missed your newsletter yesterday and you're a subscriber, free, paid, doesn't matter. Please check your email. The email comes from media@honestnetwork.com, ONEST network.com. Good morning, Rosie Marie. Good morning. So please check your email. Maybe it's in spam. Maybe it's somewhere. It's legit. It's coming from us. I moved the newsletter to our website. Why? I do love Substack. But Substack is partnering with the company, fully sponsored by Peter Thiel. Hence, I want to keep your data safe, and I want to keep my ability to report on actual news safe also. So the newsletters are on the website. Some people have messaged me, how am I going to transfer your subscriptions? If you're a free subscriber, your email just has been added to receive emails. If you're a paid subscriber, you will be prompted, you will receive an email asking to fill out your data on our website, because I never had, don't have, nor ever will have access to anything but your email. Right? We don't even ask for your first, second name. So you will be prompted to fill it out, and everything will be canceled on Substack. So nobody is being overcharged. Nobody's being charged twice. But if you do have questions or concerns, always reply to the email or message me, Olga@honestnetwork.com, at any time, and I will reply. Okay? So this is working together. There's nobody disappearing. I'm going to try and do my part gearing up for 2026, Kelly says. Yes. Exactly, in whatever fashion. So, some good news. Statement from President Biden arrived just this morning. That's why I was delayed to come up here. I was waiting for this. On Medicare's new $2,000 cap on prescription drug costs. So, he says, I believe that healthcare should be a right, not a privilege. And throughout my presidency, I have worked toward making that a reality. This week, we take another step forward as Medicare's new $2,000 cap on my prescription drug costs from my Inflation Reduction Act goes fully into effect. Before I took office, people with Medicare who needed expensive medications often faced crushing costs, sometimes paying $10,000 or more in co-pays each year. When I took on Big Pharma and won, we changed that by capping seniors' out-of-pocket spending on prescription drugs for the first time ever. In 2024, costs were capped at about 3.5 thousand, so 3,500. And in just the first 6 months of the year, this policy saved people with Medicare over $1 billion in cost sharing. Starting January 1st, 2025, the cap will fully phase in, reducing costs to just $2,000 per year. As a result, 19 million people are expected to save on average $400 each. This is a game changer for American people. My Inflation Reduction Act has significantly improved Medicare, and because of it, Americans will have more money in their pockets in the years to come. Thank you, Joe, right? Thank you, President Biden. Let's see how long this holds, and let's hope this does hold. As to President Carter's funeral services, U.S. President Joe Biden, of course, on Monday issued an executive order directing the closure of all U.S. government agencies and executive departments for January 9th to show respect for former President Jimmy Carter, who died on Sunday, of course, at the age of 100. So, also stock exchange will be closed. Hospitals and whatnot are also adjusting to this schedule, so please take a look. If you are employed by such organizations, take a look how this looks on your end. Brandon says Happy New Year in Tokyo. Happy New Year, Tokyo. I wish I could say it in Japanese, but I can't. Okay, so as to the information I received yesterday from Pentagon, it's like 4 pages of tiny print and PDFs. So official schedule of the funeral, it will begin on Saturday, January 4th. The state funeral begins with the arrival of Carter family in Phoebe Sumter Medical Center in Americus, Georgia at 10:15 a.m. Current and former special agents in charge from the United States Secret Service Carter Protective Division will carry Carter's remains to the hearse and walk alongside as the motorcade departs from the medical center. The motorcade then travels through Carter's hometown of Plains, Georgia, to his boyhood home for a brief pause in front of his family's farm at 10:50 a.m. During the pause, the National Park Service will render a salute to the late president and ring the historic farm bell 39 times. He was the 39th president. After the pause, the late president officially begins his final journey to Atlanta. As the motorcade arrives in Atlanta, it will stop in Georgia's state capitol for a moment of silence by Governor Brian Kemp, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, Mayor of Atlanta Andrew Dickens, members of Georgia legislature, and Georgia State Patrol troopers at 3 p.m. Then Carter's remains are being transported to the Carter Presidential Center for an arrival ceremony, and there he will remain for a day. Then Monday, January 6th, he will continue to lay in the Carter Center, allowing people to say their final goodbyes. And then on Tuesday, January 7th, Carter is departing the Carter Presidential Center. He will be flown by the Special Air Mission 39 to join Base Andrews in Washington or near Washington, D.C. And then he will be transported to the Capitol, where he will lay in state and allowing, again, people to say their final goodbyes. This will be available from if you're traveling to DC. Okay, so the late president is carried by military body bearers in the rotunda where members of Congress will pay their respects during a service at 3 p.m. Eastern. This is January 7th. Carter will then lie in state with the military, maintains a guard of honor. The public is invited to pay their respects as he lies in state from 7 p.m. to midnight. So 7 p.m. to midnight on January 7th. If you are traveling to Washington, D.C. or are in Washington, D.C. and would like to say your final goodbyes for late President Carter, this is available on January 7th from 7 p.m. to midnight. On Wednesday, January 8th, the late president continues to lie in state while the military maintains a guard of honor. The public is invited to pay their respects from 7 a.m. on January 8th until 7 a.m. on January 9th. So throughout the night, the Capitol is open and folks can do that. Then on January 9th, Carter departs the U.S. Capitol with ceremony for his last time at 9 a.m. The motorcade then travels to Washington National Cathedral for a brief arrival ceremony at 9:30 a.m., then followed by national funeral service that begins at 10 a.m. Eastern. That's where President Biden will deliver his eulogy. Then after this procession, again, the family and late president are transported to Joint Base Andrews, and then again, Special Air Force Mission 39. And it's so interesting, it called it 39. 39's president. They're flown back to Georgia because he decided for his final resting place to be right next to Rosalynn in Plains, Georgia. So they're traveling back to Georgia. There will be then a private ceremony with the family, and then he will be traveling or having a final tour of his beloved town until he's brought to his final resting place. And then there, the military will do the flyover. After the funeral service, the late president, his family traveled by motorcade through his beloved hometown of Plains, Georgia, to the late president's final resting place. Prior to the U.S. Navy will conduct a missing man formation flyover in honor of former President Carter's naval service and time as commander-in-chief shortly after the motorcade's arrival at the residence. So again, if you'd have any questions of where to go, when to be, if you're in Plains or in Atlanta or in Washington, D.C., and would like to pay your respects, please feel free to message me, and I will give you the exact time and place where to be, when to line up. And of course, there's directions as to what to bring, what not to bring, most importantly. And, and also for us media, we have all this type of stuff. I received messages from or emails from the Carter family, and I will be covering the funeral in official and unofficial capacity. So it will be in Washington, D.C., and cover the official ceremony and then be there for the private. I still remember when Trump was president first time around, Senior Bush died. He was over an hour late and sat in pew pouting the entire time, Brendan says. Yeah, this is sort of a blessing in disguise, is that this is going all under President Biden's direction. And of course, we can count on respect and love and gratitude and everything to be done with honor rather than like a reality show. Rosie Marie agrees with me. I'm so glad the Manus isn't POTUS. This wouldn't be happening. Indeed, right? And this lowered flags, right, that will be lowered for 30 days, and they will be flown at half staff, right, nationally, but also internationally when it comes to our embassies. Let's see if Trump will order it back up. But he can't order that for the inauguration because he ain't going to be president by then. Right? So he is only president at what, 12:01 or something. So once he is sworn in, that's when he can order flags to be flown at full. But, until then, he can't. They will be lowered on January 20th. That's Brendan. Yeah, that's what I mean. But, for the inauguration itself, they cannot be brought up. Only once he's sworn in. So, as to New York, remember this horrible video that has made its rounds where NYPD officers have beaten up to death somebody who was, incapable of fighting back, right? So New York Governor Katie Hochul has ordered significant prison reforms after the death of Black inmate Robert Brooks, who was beaten by corrections officers at Marcy Correction Facility earlier this month. Brooks, 43, died on December 10th, hours after the violent incident, which was captured on body-worn cameras. Video footage shows several officers, most of whom are white, kicking and punching the restrained inmate. Governor Hochul condemned the incident, calling it a failure of system and pledging to address the culture within state prisons. Again, my apologies, not NYPD, state prisons, correction officers. As part of the response, she appointed a new superintendent, allocated $400 million for camera installations, and ordered a comprehensive review of prison practices. Additionally, the state is expanding whistleblower protections and increasing funding for independent prison oversight. The Attorney General's office is investigating the incident, and criminal charges for those involved are possible. Now, when it comes to the incoming president, a lot of people are feeling not at ease. As close to, in New York, Queens, New York, there's a lot of Chinese folks, and they're here on those business visas, right? So when you invest and then you get a visa for that or a green card, and all of them are fearing being deported and losing their businesses. But also when it comes to Mexico, right, because that's the hot spot for the immigration or migration, hundreds of migrants gathered outside an immigration office in Tapachula, southern Mexico, on Monday, yesterday, hoping to secure a legal entry to the U.S. before President-elect Trump takes office in January. Migrants with confirmed appointments on the U.S. government's app, CBP One. By the way, that's the app that Trump referred to numerous times, saying, oh, you get like illegal ticket to enter. No, it's just an app that allows you to secure your appointment for your documents to be seen. That's all that is. So these folks who had the appointment were bused by Mexican government from the southern to northern border to protect them from gangs and organized crime. Was Trump planning to end Biden's humanitarian programs, which have allowed migrants to make appointments and enter U.S. legally? Many rushed to complete the process before January 20th. Migrants like Venezuelan Joe Hendry Paz and Salvadorian Jose Escobar expressed urgency in reaching the U.S. despite potential policy changes, relying on Mexican government's buses that transport them northward. Now, also on the same border, 3 suspects were arrested on Monday in connection with the death of a Mexican migration agent found with head injuries and signs of violence in Chihuahua State. The agent was attacked at the checkpoint near Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, while checking the identification documents of 4 nationals. 2 Venezuelan men and Colombian national were taken into custody. This is a rare occasion. It doesn't happen very often, but certainly they will be facing justice now at this point. Now, when it comes to Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro filed a complaint with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the FERC, on Monday, urging PJM Interconnection, the U.S. largest power grid operator, to revise its market rules to prevent soaring electricity costs. So if you're in Pennsylvania, you probably are very familiar with this issue. PJM, which serves over 65 million people across 13 states, has faced criticism after its annual capacity auction resulted in record high payments to power plants. Shapiro argues that PJM's price cap is excessively high and could lead to a $20.4 billion increase in electricity bills for consumers without significantly improving grid reliability. PJM attributed the price surge to tightening power supplies and rising demand, particularly due to policy shifts and growth in data centers and electrifications. Now, in other news, but it's important, perhaps it does concern you. Remember Madoff, right? Who left so many victims being completely stripped of any even Social Security or any money or any savings, right? So the U.S. government's Madoff Victim Fund announced its 10th and final distribution on Monday, yesterday, completing payouts totaling $4.3 billion to 40,930 victims of Bernard Madoff's Ponzi scheme. A final $131.4 million will be distributed to 23,408 claimants, marking the disbursement of all available assets. Victims, including individuals, schools, charities, and pension plans, will have recouped an average of 93.71% of their proven losses by the fund's closure in 2025. The total recovery for Madoff's victims, including funds from liquidation of his firm, is approximately $19 billion. The fund was primarily financed through settlements with JP Morgan Chase and Jeffrey Pickover's estate. Madoff's $64.8 billion fraud was uncovered in 2008, and he died in prison in 2021 after serving a 150-year sentence, or I guess, attempting to serve 150-year sentence. As to other billionaires, billionaire investor Bill Ackman, who was anti-Musk and Trump and now is pro, expects President-elect Donald Trump to remove Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac from conservatorship, possibly making them private entities again. Ackman speculated that this could occur within 2 years, with the companies potentially going public by 2026. Following his comments on social media, shares of Fannie Mae rose 18.4%, and Freddie Mac's shares increased by 18%. Fannie and Freddie, originally created to expand the home lending market, were placed in conservatorship in 2008 after suffering significant losses during the housing market collapse. Good. All right, another news. A U.S. judge ruled that Hain Celestial Group must face a proposed class action lawsuit accusing it of failing to disclose the presence of arsenic in some of its Earth Best baby food products. U.S. District Judge Nina Morrison found that parents plausibly alleged the products exceeded safe threshold, which could influence consumers' decisions to buy the food for their children. So, if you're a consumer of Beech-Nut, Gerber, and Nestle, and have suspected something, that indeed they are concealing harmful levels of heavy metals, which could cause neurological damage in children. So again, let's have a full readout on that in the newsletter if this is concerns you and your kids, certainly, and probably there will be class action soon. Now, as to South Korea, first an update on the plane accident. Remember, the plane was attempting to take off. Something happened with the landing gear. 181 people on board, including the pilots and the team. 171 died in an instant. Of course, that full tank of gas, they somehow deviated from their path and smashed into the fans, right? South Korea's policy agency said today it was making efforts to expedite the process of identifying dead bodies from Jeju airplane crash that killed 179 people on Sunday. Almost same-ish thing happened yesterday with another plane, another Boeing 737-800 by the same air company yesterday in South Korea. They managed to land safely, but something again happened with the landing gear. So there will be South Korea has ordered to investigate all Boeing's 737-800s in their fleet. So, other news, South Korean court approved an arrest warrant for President Yoon Suk Yeol on Tuesday, following his impeachment and suspension from power over his decision to impose martial law on December 3rd. Remember, he tried to stay in power, imposed this fake martial law overnight. People protested, they stormed the government, he withdrew his order, and now he's being impeached. And the second one, second prime minister who was, president, who was sort of not elected, but sort of appointed after this impeachment, was impeached as well. So Yoon is under criminal investigation for possible insurrection charges related to the controversial move, as reported by Yonhap News Agency. Now, South Korea's acting president, Choi Sang-mok, so this is the third one already, right? December 3rd, the first one was declaring martial law. For that, he was impeached. Next one was appointed. He didn't want to appoint investigation or start investigation into the previous president, so he was impeached for that. Now it's the third one. South Korea's acting president, Choi Sang-mok, announced on Tuesday plans to swiftly fill vacancies on the Constitutional Court, a step he described as essential for restoring stability following a tumultuous month marked by the impeachment of two of his predecessors. And also, he came to the crash site, right? This airplane crash site, 48 hours into his presidency, and he had to face all this tragedy and devastation and order, investigation and confront, of course, and console victims and their families of the victims, of course. So Choi, who assumed acting presidency on December 27th, emphasized the urgency of resolving the nation's political uncertainty and mitigating its economic and social impacts. Quote, I decided to appoint constitutional court justices because of the urgency of ending political uncertainty and social conflict as soon as possible to stop the possibility of crisis in the economy and people's livelihoods, unquote, Choi stated during cabinet meeting. And of course, with a neighbor such as North Korea, you got to have your ducks in order. You can't be impeaching your presidents every other week. Roberto says awareness, consumers, civilian, and political citizens must always be aware, always. Yes, that's to baby food. Yeah. Brendan says there's been a couple plane crashes this month. So said, yeah, people are saying, well, guesstimating maybe Russia is involved or whatnot. Remains to be seen. I'm the last person to trust Russia with anything, but and I have a readout on what they planned for 2013-14 and didn't do. Big news that leaked today by Financial Times. I have a readout on that in a second, but I mean, yes, to your point, Brendan. Air Canada, KLM, South Korea, Azerbaijan Airlines, which was knocked down by Russia's the protective system, right? The missile. Different issues, but yes, indeed, a very heavy month for air industry. Okay, so political crisis deepens. Now, the crisis began on December 3rd when the president was still about South Korea. Yoon Suk Yeol's brief attempt to impose martial law led to his suspension from power. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, who had been serving as acting president since Yoon's suspension, was impeached on December 22nd for his refusal to appoint 3 constitutional court justices, citing limitations in his authority as acting leader. With both Yoon and Han facing impeachment trials, the Constitutional Court's decision on their cases remains pivotal. However, the court's functionality was hindered by 3 vacancies among its 9 justices. Just imagine we would have Supreme Court and we have only 6 there. However, the court's functionality was hindered by 3 vacancies among its 9 justices, requiring unanimous agreement among the 6 current justices to remove Yoon from office. So, detailed readout will be in your newsletter and on the podcast. Let's take a quick break. So if you are not subscribed, go to honestnetwork.com, ONEST network.com. You have articles coming throughout the day, latest news there. Also, our newsletters are there. You can subscribe free or paid. I'm very, very grateful for your support. But please decide what works for you. Go to honestnetwork.com. There also you have your newsletters and the podcast, right? And the podcast is available everywhere, including inside your newsletter. You can tap play and it plays, but also on it's the actual news podcast. It's on Apple Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora. Wherever you listen to podcasts, please go ahead, listen. It's concise. I'm not talking about God in the world. Simple readouts of your newsletter. It's 20 to 25 minutes, straight to the point. The latest news premiering 5 p.m. Eastern every day, Monday through Friday. So get your newsletter, get your podcast, and in the morning, we're meeting here for actual news. And so morning and evening, you're very much informed. Okay, so remember the flight of this Azerbaijani Airlines that the Russians, knocked out of the sky. Now, flight records from Brazil-made Embraer aircraft that crashed in Kazakhstan last week are being sent to Brazil for data extraction. Of course, Brazil produced the airplane. They will be analyzing the data and, first of all, getting a hold of it. The Brazilian Air Force confirmed that the cockpit voice and flight data recorder will be analyzed in Brasilia, with oversight from officials from Kazakhstan, Russia, and Azerbaijan. The investigation following the crash that killed 38 people will focus on the role of Russian air defenses in the incident. The plane, diverted from southern Russia due to Ukrainian drone attacks, crashed near Aktau, Kazakhstan. Well, it was diverted not because of Ukrainian drone attacks, first of all. If Ukrainian drone attacks were so dangerous, why didn't you close the sky? It was diverted because it's shot down by Russia, and they didn't want the plane to fall over Kazakhstan or over Russian, well, it was diverted to Kazakhstan. They didn't want the plane to fall over Grozny, over Chechnya or Russian territory or anywhere where it can be analyzed. And so they send it over Caspian Sea, hoping it will fall somewhere in the sea together with everything that will be there. But all the proof that Russia did it. But it did make it to Kazakhstan, and then people did survive. And now they're reporting that they heard a bang. They heard that something did happen from outside. It wasn't an explosion from the inside that was alleged before. It wasn't birds. This was something that was ordinary that did happen to the plane. So now they have to face this goddamn music. So let's not make Ukrainian drones a reason for this plane crash. I digress. Now, today is New Year. Chinese president Xi Jinping has delivered his speech. And in a firm New Year's address on Tuesday, Chinese president reiterated Beijing's resolve to achieve reunification with Taiwan, issuing a pointed warning to pro-independence advocates, both within and outside the self-governing island of 23 million. So this was really directed more or less to Trump, honestly. And Trump wants to be the big guy, right? And if you're the big guy and you claim that, China will face the music, we'll do this, we'll do that. Okay, now China is really inviting you to show how big of a boss you are. Quote, no one can sever our family bonds. And no one can stop the historical trend of national reunification, unquote, Xi declared during his televised speech on state broadcaster CCTV. He underscored that people on both sides of Taiwan Strait are one family, calling for unity under the vision of China's national rejuvenation. Xi remarks came as China intensifies its military activities near Taiwan, with nearly daily incursions by warships and aircraft at the region's waters and into region's waters and airspace. Taiwanese officials described these maneuvers as part of Beijing's strategy to normalize its military presence around the island. I mean, what's normal about that? They do those drills. Meanwhile, they block any connection. People don't have even telephone connection during all of that, nor internet. That's why they're exploring satellites and the connection with satellites. They don't want to deal with Musk and SpaceX. They want to, or Starlink. They want to deal now with Amazon and Bezos. He's shooting also satellites into space. So, and they're blocking airports and ports. So what type of normalization and rejuvenation that is remains to be seen. While China considers Taiwan a breakaway province destined to reunite with the mainland, Taiwan's government, led by newly elected President Lai Ching-te, rejects Beijing's claims. Lai, whom Beijing labels as separatist, has maintained that only the Taiwanese people can determine their future and has called for respect for their democratic choices. So a complete readout will be in your newsletter and on the podcast. It's a longer one. It's analyzing the economy, the political, diplomatic consequences of such speech and what he meant. Right now, this is a year of uncertainty. Xi Jinping's speech at Beijing's increasing military pressure signal is a continuation of its hardline stance on Taiwan, as the island remains a flashpoint in U.S.-China relations. The world watches closely, bracing for implications of these escalating tensions in the year ahead. So check your comments real quick. Alrighty. Alexander says, hey, good morning. Taiwan never was part of communist China. What a clown. Exactly. It sounds like Putinist claim inheritance for Russian Empire without retiring back all private property confiscated by Bolsheviks. Exactly. I need to catch up on your podcast. Yes, Brandon, please do. Roberta says Boeing 737 Airbuses. Boeing hasn't had good news for several years now. Yeah, and they were saving so much on their technicians. They told people, if something is shaky, don't replace it. They want to break even because they couldn't be profitable, yada, yada. Yeah. Now, remember Musk, we certainly remember that he mixes into our election. But he tried to do the same thing through TikTok and whatnot in Germany. And as recent as a day ago, their coalition came together and said, listen, we will not allow Musk to intermix in our election, interfere in our elections, neither hidden, such as in Romania, nor in the open, such as in the United States, through the purchase of acts and all that kind of stuff. Now, Elon Musk's endorsement of Germany's far-right Alternative for Germany, AfD party, which he presented in the term of an opinion piece that was presented in Welt am Sonntag. This is the Welt is like New York Times in Germany, and then this is like the Sunday issue. And so he did a long piece and he said only the right-wing party can protect and save Germany. And he's endorsing their policies on cleansing the nation, stopping migration, protecting people from abortions. So now, Vice Chancellor Robert Habeck, in his New Year's address, described Musk's support as logical and systematic effort to weaken Europe, arguing that a less regulated Europe benefits powerful interests like Musk's. Don't forget, Musk opened his factory, Tesla factory in Germany, which he wanted to open in 4 months, which took him 4 years because Germans don't do this type of stuff. You can't buy your way into opening a factory, abusing your staff, making them overwork, don't pay for overtime, and all that kind of stuff. So he's very much pissed at the current government. Okay, so he's not making profit in Germany. The German government also accused Musk of attempting to influence the upcoming national elections, following his guest opinion piece in Welt am Sonntag, where he praised the AfD's stance on regulation, tax, and market deregulation. Musk, who has previously supported Trump, faced backlash over his comments, which led to resignation of Welt editor, right? So now the editor, who could not prohibit from this piece from being published, resigned the same day in Germany. Putin, no words, we'd get banned. Bonnie, yeah, it's so interesting. So on TikTok, they contacted me to say, go live on TikTok, we're going to pay you for the news, blah, blah, blah. Which I'm not doing that on TikTok. But then I posted something about the podcast. Literally, this picture that I just showed you was yesterday. I put this and I said, if you want actual news, go to any platform, listen to podcasts, blah, blah, blah. And I got banned. And the reason was election interference, lies about election, and misusing media. How is that possible? I just literally posted this picture. What's in my actual news? So you don't want to, obviously, you don't want to have the Chinese TikTok doesn't want to hear about Taiwan and analysis and all of this. I get it. But it's very interesting how fast this works. So, North Korea, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un pledged to further solidify the country's strategic partnership with Russia in a new love letter to Vladimir Putin. According to state media KCNA, Kim wrote a letter. Trump was crying today. Kim expressed his commitment to deepening bilateral ties, which he said had been elevated through the new initiatives in 2023. He lost 1,000 troops in 1 week. But he's solidifying his ties. I guess love needs sacrifice. He also wished for 2025 to be marked as a year of victory for Russia in its fight against neo-Nazism. Unless Russia kills itself. I don't know what they're fighting. The message follows the signing of a mutual defense treaty between the two countries in June, under which they agreed to assist each other in the event of an armed attack. North Korea has since sent tens of thousands of troops to support Russia's war in Ukraine, with reports of over 1,000 casualties among them. Also, Russians, they now, it's very cold, right? So whoever is killed remains to be in a recognizable condition. Let's put it this way. So now they're burning the faces of Korean people. So the drones, Ukrainian drones that had cameras on them, can't recognize that those were the Koreans. Now, the owner of Eagle S, remember the oil tanker that was dragging the anchor, right, damaging the underwater cables between Finland and Sweden and Estonia and Lithuania, right? The Estlink 2. The owner of Eagle S, the oil tanker seized by Finland last week for suspected involvement in damaging undersea power and telecom cables in Baltic Sea, is seeking its release. Oh, really? Finnish authorities boarded the Cook Islands registered ship on Thursday, suspecting it had severed the S-Link 2 power cable and damaged several fiber optics lines, while dragging its anchor. Investigators believe the incident occurred on December 25th. Finland's customs service also suspects the Eagle S is part of a fleet, right? That shadow fleet, evading sanctions on Russian oil and has impounded its cargo. The ship's owner, UAE-based Caravella LLC FZ, filed a court request to cancel the seizure, claiming no legal basis for the action. Finnish officials, however, maintained that it was lawful and that the crew's rights were respected. Now, to the big leak from Financial Times on Russians' plans to, guess what, invade Japan and South Korea in 2013-14. So grab a popcorn because it's a biggie. Leaked classified Russian military documents this morning, revealed by the Financial Times, show that as early as 2013-14, Russia developed plans for attacks on Japan and South Korea, including strikes on civilian infrastructure. The documents list 160 potential targets, including military bases, radar installations, command centers, and key infrastructure like bridges, tunnels, power plants, and industrial facilities. Specific targets include nuclear facilities in Tokai, Japan, and steel plant in Pohang, South Korea. One scenario detailed the destruction of the Okushirito base using 12 KH-101 cruise missiles, which were believed to have 85% success rate. However, these missiles have proven less effective in actual combat, struggling against advanced air defense systems. The documents also reveal Russia's efforts to test the defenses of its neighbors. In February 2014, two 95 strategic bombers flew a 17-hour mission around South Korea and Japan, provoking 18 fighter intercepts. This was part of regular operations to assess the defensive capabilities of these regional countries. These leaks highlight Russia's strategic insecurity on its eastern flank and emphasize the interconnectedness of European and Asian theaters of war. Analysts argue that conflicts in either region can impact the other. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, South Korea and Japan have deepened their cooperation with the United States, further diminishing Russian influence in the region, a development that likely frustrates Kremlin. Oh, no way, Jose. Of course it does. Also, Russia, at this point, I mean, this is 10 years later, 10, 11 years later, almost 12. They pooped themselves so hard with failing to take over Ukraine. And if you ever looked at the map comparing Russia next to Ukraine, and losing so much. I mean, they're losing now, per Ukrainian sources, up to 2,000 people a day in combat, just trying to push Ukrainians from the Kursk region, where Ukrainians are on this incursion into Russian territory, which would allow Ukraine to have better chances to negotiate, release of Ukrainian territory, in return for the Kursk region, which is Russian. And they're failing so hard. And Ukraine did such a good deed to the world, showing how weak Russia is, how weak their threats are. Like yesterday, they hacked national television in Ukraine and put this thing, oh, we're going to bomb you with the Rashnik. We're going to have a nuclear attack. Nuclear attack imminent. It's incoming. It's incoming. People were watching this crap all day and then nothing happens, right? So it's a lot of talk. It's very much inefficient. When they promised to bomb somebody with a Rashnik, reportedly they had two prototypes. One hit Dnipro, another one failed to hit anything and just fell in southern Ukraine and crashed, right? So those were two of those Orashniks. And then Putin says, we will start the production. But then at the same time, we will bomb everybody with Orashnik and, put nukes into it and, just blast, kill everybody with Orashnik. That does not exist. That's pretty much the talk. So Ukraine did such a good deed to the world, but also United States, allowing to put Russia in the corner, which certainly this administration decided not to do, for their own reasons. I'm not saying that I'm not in anybody's seat. We don't have the information that neither Sullivan nor Kirby or President Biden certainly have, or Secretary Austin. But from the outside, they chose diplomatic approach. They chose semi supporting Ukraine, right? Supporting Ukraine, but then the Congress intervened. There was a delay. That's why Ukrainians suffered and lost territory in meanwhile. But supporting Ukraine rather than hitting Russia. Okay, that is a strategy. That's where we are. As to Trump and what he will do, I feel, like in Germany, I grew up in Germany, and in Germany they say große Schnauze, nichts dahinter. That's like a big mouth and nothing behind it. I think that's the talk here. Putin talks a lot. Trump talks a lot. Yesterday was the biggest rumor in Ukrainian media, saying that allegedly Putin were to meet with Trump yesterday to end the war in Ukraine. Then it was said, oh, it's going to be all virtual. And then they started saying that the planes are flying into New York. Well, Trump is in Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, planes are flying in New York. They do have a whole mission, UN mission in New York. And certainly, of course, they exchange people. But nothing did happen. And then they said, oh, they failed to meet. So all of this is talking. So what Trump will actually do, if you ask me, again, this is my humble opinion. This is not actual news. Humble opinion. I think he will stop aid to Ukraine. That's really what he will do. The rest, the promises, the big pictures, the big, freedom, peacemaker, whatever, I don't see that happening. And then if this happens, then my question is, how far can Ukraine come? How strong are they, given that all the aid that Biden managed to ship off before Trump comes in? How far will Ukraine be able to be taken, given this aid? How long can they survive? How hard can they fight back? That is what I predict. Yes, it's not rosy, it's not happy, but it is what, again, my humble opinion. So, as to Israel, Israel's ambassador to United Nations, Danny Danon, issued a stark warning to Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi militia on Monday, urging them to cease missile attacks on Israel or face the same fate as groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, and Syria's Bashar al-Assad. Given that, today, CENTCOM, our U.S. Central Command forces, informed that they conducted multiple precision strikes against Iran-backed Houthi targets in Sanas and other coastal regions in Houthi-controlled territory in Yemen on December 30th and 31st, so as soon as today. They have successfully targeted and eliminated weapon production and storage sites, which included missiles and uncrewed aerial vehicles, the UAVs, which is certainly good news, because all of that Iranian, right, UAVs are being shipped to Russia as well. So, also, U.S. Department of Defense announced the repatriation of Rida bin Saleh al-Jazidi from Guantanamo Bay detention facility to Tunisia. So he was held there, was deemed eligible for transfer following a comprehensive interagency review progress mandated by Executive Order 13492. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin notified Congress of the planned repatriation in January 2024, and the transfer was completed in coordination with the Tunisian government. As of today, 26 detainees remain at Guantanamo Bay, with 14 eligible for transfer, 3 awaiting a periodic review board, and 7 involved in military commissions, and 2 having been convicted and sentenced. So, again, will Guantanamo Bay be cleansed out, or will everybody be transferred under Trump's presidency? Remains to be seen. I don't see it, but again, remains to be seen. Bonnie says, shaking my head, no surprise. Are you Russians dream of the world controlled by them? Yeah, and they can't control even themselves. Bonnie and Brendan, the real fake news. He has lost the sense of reality. Trump, same kind of crazy. Reality show 2.0, Roberto says. DJT does live in his own reality, living by his guts and feelings. or his reality show, right? I'm just dreading and waiting for that breaking news report that Trump forced Ukraine to surrender to Russia. It's coming. Again, and that is my question. See, that's why I'm seeking answers from Ukrainians and also European partners, because Europe did at least invest in production for the past 3 years now of this war. Let's see if they can somehow combat Russians, because I do not see Trump resolving the Ukrainian issue. If anything, he will just bow to Putin. I hope to be wrong. Again, I wholeheartedly hope to be wrong, and I will be the first to apologize that I was a dumbass saying that. But again, remains to be seen. As to good news, let's finish on the good note. New York, right? Da, 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 da. New Year's Eve is coming. So people are lining up as soon as from 2 a.m. this morning. And look at this guy with a Trump hat lining up to see the ball drop on Times Square in New York City, and take a look at the reactions to him.
Hi.
How you doing?
You're the first in line?
I'm the most hated in line. I'll say that. I'm the most hated in line right now.
You're the most what?
Hated in line.
Why?
I don't know.
He cut at
They
like
think
6
I
in the
cut,
morning.
but I didn't cut.
He
I was.
cut at like 6 in the morning.
I don't
He
agree
came
with this
way,
guy.
he cut at
No.
like 6 in the morning.
I was here.
How many people were here at
And
6
we
in the
can
morning?
all say that.
What time were you here?
We were always here.
Everybody in this line will tell you he cut at like 6
What
in the
time
morning.
did you? What time
I
did
got
you?
here,
leave?
I got here
cut
like
us,
3, 4
bro.
in the morning.
Cut
Wow,
us.
and you got 6?
I've been here since 12.
No, he hasn't. No, he got here at like 6.
I was here at 2 a.m. I've been here since 12.
Oh no, the guy with the Trump inauguration hat is lying. Who could foresee that? But they did rehearse. If you're not from New York, perhaps you don't know, but days before New Year's Eve, they do rehearse every time at noon or midnight, the countdown and the Happy New Year message. You push the button, all that kind of stuff. So they did rehearse it finally with the 2025 numbers yesterday. Then everything, well, not yesterday, this week. And then everything was brought up, of course, and the numbers are now ready, installed on top of the building. But this is how the countdown rehearsal went down on the ground with the numbers. Take a look.
3, 2, 1, Happy New Year!
And of course, they rehearse also the music and confetti. And confetti is very sweet, though. They clean it very fast, but the people are writing their wishes, and it's usually done by the Make-A-Wish Foundation. They write wishes on the confetti, and it's being thrown off the rooftops on Times Square. First time I arrived in New York, well, in the United States, was December 31st, 2008, something like that. And I went to Times Square, which I think I saw the ball drop. Now I know I didn't, because it was very crowded. But that's the only time I was close to Times Square on New Year's Eve. I was at an event, a ball, with ball gowns on the Times Square, but I was never watching the ball drop in front of it. Usually people can win tickets. They can also purchase tickets to come through and stay close. But also New Yorkers, which tourists usually don't know, New Yorkers are being cast and paid to come and stand right by the stage where they dance and the ball drops and people are kissing with Nivea hats or whatever, Nivea, whatever you pronounce it as. Or I think it's the fitness. What is that fitness? The pink purple one, something fitness. Fitness 20, whatever. So those hats where they stand and listen to Sinatra's song at New Year's at the ball drop. But New Yorkers are cast and paid. I think it's $180 to come in at 10 p.m. You are escorted right in front of the stage, and then so they need fresh people, not those who have been standing there without bathroom from 2 a.m. in the morning. That's the biggest issue. If you want to go to Times Square for a New Year's drop, you can't leave your spot, nor you can use bathroom. So you figure it out how they do it. So for that reason, not looking forward to doing that anytime soon. Bonnie says, maybe status quo. Some in Congress may force more aid to Ukraine as bargaining chip, since MAGA, very narrow majority, needs Dems to pass anything at all. Yeah, for sure. This will be entertaining to watch MAGA try to pass anything. Indeed. And we had a preview, right? We had a preview of that last week. Right, of this sort of creep show of them trying to pass anything. So we'll see how this will work out. But anyway, on this note, I wish you a wonderful end of the year and a beautiful slide into 2025. And for all of us, I wish a peaceful, healthy 2025. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for making actual news and this whole thing a reality. We met thing in May of this year in this format. And thank you for subscribing for newsletter. Thank you for joining the community. This is my biggest, takeaway from 2024. We met, we cruised through this election. We made it through up and down and in between. And I'm very, very grateful for you, for your trust, for your time. And for you joining this conversation first and foremost. Otherwise, it would be me talking in front of a computer and thinking I'm delusional. But you're joining every morning. We met before in the evenings. We will soon meet in the evenings for interviews. So thank you so much. Thank you for supporting. This is fully independent journalism situation. So thank you for being a part of it. And thank you for wonderful Hence 2024. Again, honestnetwork.com. Get your newsletter, get your live streams, podcast, and everything. And we cruise into 2025. We'll be off tomorrow for the day. Today, you'll get your newsletter and the podcast around 5 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow, we're off. And from the second on, we start and begin in full force, also adding interviews to our gatherings here, which will be premiering at night. Alrighty. Again, thank you so much for joining. Fetterman is becoming Joe Manchin. Yeah, right. Have a safe, peaceful, healthy new year, honesters. Yes, honesters. Bonnie, thank you. Alexander says Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Yes. Brandon says I'm not working tonight for once. Woot woot. My butt will be sitting at home watching it. Good. Very nice. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Roberta. Yes, Bonnie sends us a love letter. That's so cute. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Okay, guys. Happy New Year. See you in the new year, which will be in person here at the AM actual news on, what is tomorrow, Wednesday? On Thursday. But tonight, newsletter and the podcast. Okay. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful end of the year and slide well in 2025. See you there.